Welcome to Faith and Freedom. For the next few minutes, we hope to inform, inspire, and encourage you as we discuss the legal victories and challenges to your fundamental freedoms and religious liberties. Faith and Freedom comes to you from Liberty Counsel, a civil liberties, education, and legal defense organization. Join us now as we explain the latest legal issues all across this country. In the courtrooms of America, Liberty Counsel is winning the battle for your constitutional freedoms.
Pastors, churches, and political activity. The Obama administration jumps into the fray of this issue. Hi, I'm Matt Staver, founder and chairman of Liberty Counsel. We'll talk about this today on Faith and Freedom with Matt Barber, who is the vice president of Liberty Counsel Action. Matt, the Obama administration recently met with black pastors in a really unprecedented situation because Attorney General Eric Holder was also part of those meetings with the Department of Justice, and they were trying to essentially encourage these black pastors to get involved in political activity. Yeah. An IRS representative was also there. It's very unprecedented that the administration of the president, of any administration, would actually meet with pastors to encourage them to get involved in political activity in an upcoming election.
Yeah, I immediately thought, boy, if the Bush administration had done this, Barry Lynn with Americans United for Separation of Church and State, his head would have exploded. But since it's a Democrat president, his president that he supports ostensibly, you don't hear a whole lot from Barry Lynn on this subject. But yeah, fascinating stuff. And I thought it was really a cynical move. First and foremost, because Holder got up there and with, as an attorney, you would expect him to have evidence. With no evidence whatsoever, he suggested that Republicans are going to try to keep African Americans from voting. And so he was trying to fire up the base. He's creating that racial divide, trying to fire up these African American pastors to get them motivated, to get their congregation motivated, to get out behind Barack Obama. I thought it was a very cynical and disingenuous move on his part.
It's just unbelievable that you would have an attorney general, the highest law enforcement officer of the country, that political. Yeah. They need to ride above the political fray. They need not to get their hands dirty in the political give and take of the day, no matter whether they're an appointment of the President of the United States. They need to rise above that. They need to be a neutral arbiter of the law. As a neutral law enforcement person, you need to be able to trust them. And I don't think you can trust this Attorney General with the political ideology that he has engaged in, whether it's in this situation trying to divide people, Republicans and Democrats, trying to use racial issues to divide people, to mobilize his base, or like what we've seen in the abortion issue, trying to target innocent people who are just out there to defend the sanctity of life and help women.
Well, it doesn't surprise me, frankly, coming from Eric Holder. He's revealed himself over and over again to be beyond incompetent, because to be very, very partisan, to the point that he would abrogate his duty. We remember the new Black Panthers involved in voter intimidation at the polls. Caught on camera, he refused to prosecute them. When with this whole Trayvon Martin situation, with the young man that is now in jail for that shooting, people threatening to kill him, putting out a bounty, Zimmerman, putting out a bounty on his life. He didn't hear hide nor hair from the Justice Department on this issue, so it doesn't surprise me. But what was also interesting and telling to me, and to comment on this, Matt, is that, again, imagine if this had been a Republican president doing this. The mainstream media, you would have heard separation of church and state scream from the rooftops. Not a peep. Not a peep.
Media at all. Well, the interesting thing is that apparently a representative from IRS was there, and at least according to the reports, I don't have the transcript of what the IRS person actually said. The IRS person essentially apparently warned that pastors could lose their tax-exempt status for engaging in too much political activity. The fact of the matter is, and we've done seminars, and we'll do seminars all over the country on this as well, and I've written and we've talked about this for many years. Not one church since 1954, when this new restriction came into the IRS code, has ever lost its tax-exempt status. Not one, for either opposing or supporting a candidate for political office. Now, the IRS regulation says that churches cannot intervene or support or oppose a candidate for elective office. But again, not one church has ever lost its tax-exempt status for doing so. And pastors and churches can engage in a lot of activities that are clearly not even up to that line that the IRS code has ultimately drawn. And that is they can preach on biblical issues. Some pastors think, well, because the politicians are talking about abortion or same-sex marriage or whatever it might be, that's a political issue, and therefore I can't speak about that and give my view. That's not true. Anything that is biblical, anything that you want to speak on with regards to the Bible or our culture is not off limits simply because politicians are also talking about it.
And, you mentioned biblical issues. That brings up another case tied into this idea of the Obama administration going to these black churches. Again, it just displays an amount of hubris and arrogance on the part of this administration and this president that I've never seen before. This after, on the heels of the president thumbing his nose at these very black pastors around the country by coming out in support of counterfeit same-sex marriage. He has infuriated black pastors across the country with this, and now he goes to them with hat in hand and expects them to fire up the base for his cause when he has alienated them in such a way.
Well, in fact, he talked to some black pastors before he went out to do this announcement on same-sex marriage, and they opposed it. Many of them did oppose it. Now, there were some, obviously, that were in favor, but there were many black pastors, and I would say there are most black pastors,
majority, sure.
By far, that don't agree with same-sex marriage. They understand the breakdown of the family. Of any communities, you see the breakdown of the family with regards to the father. And same-sex marriage creates a fatherless home. Yeah. It just does. It creates a fatherless situation. It compounds the breakdown of the family. And most black pastors and people in the black community understand that. So he thumbed his nose at them, and then he wants to now recruit them. The NAACP, unbelievably, has decided that it wants to get into the same-sex marriage issue as well. Well, Reverend Keith Ratliff Sr., who's an NAACP state conference president for Iowa and Nebraska, said he's now in prayer about his relationship with the organization following the NAACP's endorsement of same-sex marriage. He's one of 64 members of the board of directors, and he's also the pastor of the Maple Street Missionary Baptist Church in Des Moines, Iowa. He says there's a number of issues that the NAACP has to address and deal with, and I certainly don't think same-sex marriage should be a top priority. This right here is not sitting well with the black community.
Well, I was recently talking with Ron Miller. He's an African-American. He's the Associate Dean of the Liberty's Helms School of Government. He said the NAACP no longer represents those it presumes to represent, its constituents. We know, just look to California, overwhelmingly 70% of African-Americans voted in favor of Proposition 8, defending natural marriage as between one man and one woman. And as you point out here, Matt, the NAACP nonetheless, again, thumbs its nose at those it presumes to represent, goes entirely contrary to their best interest and to what their sincerely held beliefs, and says we're going to support counterfeit marriage. So the NAACP, according to Ron Miller, an African-American, is completely out of touch with the beliefs of the African-American community.
Well, certainly, the economy is front and center in the upcoming election, but obviously same-sex marriage will be now because the president has put that at play. And obviously pastors and churches are going to want to address this issue. For more information on what pastors and churches can do, you can go to our website at lc.org. That's lc.org. And on the website it says churches and nonprofits. If you click on that, it'll talk about political activity of churches and nonprofits. A lot of things that you can print download, such as bulletin inserts. On one side it has what pastors and churches can do. On the other side, it has quotes from the Founding Fathers about the importance of getting involved in the process of voting. And then we also have other information about what you can do, as well as a DVD. And a lot of that information is there on the website, lc.org, or you can call 1-800-671-1776.
And I know we just have a few more moments here, but boy, I suspect that President Obama wishes he had a mulligan on his coming out in support of same-sex marriage. It's showing that it is not playing well with the voters, with independents especially, that's where this vote is going to ultimately be determined in a lot of ways.
Well, it's certainly a huge issue. And it has been in the past, and we're in a very culture war for the preservation and the definition of marriage. To redefine marriage has significant and detrimental consequences. You can order my book called Same-Sex Marriage, Putting Every Household at Risk. That's Same-Sex Marriage, Putting Every Household at Risk. You can also call 800-671-1776 and get information about pastors, churches, and political activities. We have a DVD, and on that DVD, It also has information that you can download from that. So you can also order that DVD. Make sure you get it out to the pastors and the church leaders in your community, not only your own church, but other pastors and church leaders in your community as well. Just call 800-671-1776 and ask for the DVD on pastors, churches, and political activity. You can also go to lc.org to make an online credit card contribution to continue to support this ministry to advance life, liberty, and family.
You have been listening to Matt Staver of Liberty Counsel. We hope that we have motivated you to stand up for your faith, family, and freedoms. We can accomplish a lot when we work together. Get informed and get involved today. Sign up for our free monthly newsletter, The Liberator. We will send it out to you free of charge. Stay informed with our Liberty Alert email updates. Just click on the website at www.lc.org or call us at 1-800-671-1776. Tune in next time to learn more about your rights right here on Faith and Freedom.